What's up, guys? It's your boy MICHIGANDERMAN, and today I am in Manistee, Michigan, the hometown of the one, the only James Earl Jones. And today we are here at where it all began for him, at the Ramsdell Theater. And we are going to get a tour of the Ramsdell and learn a lot of history of Mr. James Earl Jones, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and make sure when you guys see this, make sure you smash that like button. That really helps YouTube and the algorithm get my videos out. Like, share, and subscribe, and let's go on an amazing. So guys, we are in the Ramsdell Theater, and this was the man that built the theater, Mr. Ramsdell. And I'll let you guys read that. But look at these. These were painted. It's canvas. That's a canvas. It's not painted on the wall, but it's a canvas that's on the wall. And it was painted by his son. They said they had to go through layers and layers and layers of paint to get to the original colors. And this, what you see here, is the original coloring. But look at these beautiful, beautiful paintings in here. And this is the doorway to get to the theater, and I cannot wait to show you guys what the theater looked like. Wow.
Imagine putting 250 people up here at tables for dinners. And my question was, what did they do about food prep?
Right.
The catering kitchen is really just a warming kitchen.
This is beautiful.
20 years ago. But there was not even a sink up here. There was no elevator. So I was musing aloud one day while giving a tour elsewhere. And I said, yeah, I wonder what they did for cleaning or cleanliness and preparing food. And he said, I know. He said, when I was a young kid, I had pocket money bringing big kettles of food over. Ran up the stairs.
Oh, wow.
Here they would have a long table, and women would take the food from him and then plate it.
So they would set all the food right here.
Either plated or probably plated it and took it to the tables. And he said, I have pocket money. I said, where did they prepare it? Well, I'm guessing the Methodist Church, which is next door.
Yeah.
Because that's so close. So it had no catering kitchen, no elevator. If you were
That's a lot of exercise.
you just couldn't come. Back there, you see a doorway. It's blocked off. That doorway connects with a spiral staircase that starts down on the stage level. After performance, performers would get out of their makeup and such. They could come up here and enjoy an afterglow party with the crowd. You know, invitation only, I'm sure. Different families might take turns decorating. I heard a story that once they decorated the space with baskets that were standing baskets of roses, American Beauty roses. One family bought a train car load of Spanish moss, had it shipped up here, and draped it around the room, which, you know, would have been incredible. But it really doesn't take a lot to make this space beautiful.
No.
After theater was dying down in here, after the Ramsdells passed away, and I'll get into that more in the theater itself, this space became an armory in World War II, and there was a gun safe up in the tower. Not too many years ago, there was no key, but they got into that gun safe finally. It was like Al Capone's vault. It was empty.
Wow.
But they realized, oh, that was here from the time that this was the armory. Over the years, this was a basketball court. These are not the original light fixtures.
Oh, okay.
And when I moved here in the 80s, late 80s, there were the caged fluorescent lights, you know, the cages to protect them from the balls. And a coworker said, oh, in the early 1970s, her freshman girls basketball team practiced here because there weren't enough spaces elsewhere. So we had these period correct lights put in after our restoration. They also used this for, over the years, for a roller skating rink.
Huh.
And that was kind of amazing.
So I'm wondering, where they have the basketball hoops? Would they be like on top here? Or?
They are there, yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the dents up here are from basketballs.
Oh yeah, I see that.
So, but that's the original tin ceiling.
Wow.
In the 70s, the city, who owns the building now, did a lot of roof, well, they re-roofed it completely, and then, you know, this was safe in here. The flooring is original.
I was going to ask, I wonder if that was...
Mm-hmm. And I had a couple come in one time, and they are ballroom dancers, and they said, do you mind if you kick off your shoes and dance? I said, no. I said, oh, and would you mind humming a waltz? I'll try. But then up here we have the built-in seats.
Wow.
There's partly a velvet cushion all the way around the room. There's a step up here too, but some places for people to sit. And they could use a lot of the space for dancing. We've had
That's so neat.
proms. We've had weddings and receptions up here. We've had, you name it. You know, it's been used for many, many things. Now, John C. Reilly came. He has a cottage in the Pentwater area.
Okay.
Michael Moore and John C. Reilly knew one another. Michael Moore said to him, we're trying to get this downtown movie theater back on its feet, like the State Theater in Traverse. It's going to be a volunteer only. Would you do something as a benefit? John C. Reilly plays with a group of musicians. He said, I'm not the real musician, they are, but because of space, I think it was, they said, well, we're going to have it up here. I think there was something else going on in the theater at the time. So I think there were about 350 seats in here, and there was a raised stage by the fireplace, which is just a fake fireplace, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And they played. So he did a benefit up here, but the sound was rather atrocious because of it bouncing off of all these walls and the
Right.
But yet, that was kind of cool. But he likes the area, so he said, sure, I'll do something. Now up there, you're seeing the balcony. This balcony would have been used for an orchestra to play for the people who were eating down here, or if they were having a dance, or what have you. And now it's a dance studio for a local gal.
Wow.
So as you know, this catering kitchen wasn't here, so it's a nice big rectangular thing. That is a staircase simply to go out on the, down the side of the building in case of fire escape.
Oh, okay.
People have said, what does that do? You know, it looks so ornate kind of for
Right.
But it's just to get. Let's talk about James Earl Jones up here just a bit, because when he came in 1993, Ann Whittick, the woman downstairs in that pastel, Ann had said to him, when are you going to come and do something for the theater, to benefit the theater? Haven't been back. They had kept in touch since he had moved on and moved away. And she always called him Todd, because that was a stage name he took when he was here. And she said, so when are you going to do something? And I said, well, you know, I got a busy schedule. I can't do a play or anything, but, I just wrote my autobiography. How about I do a book signing? She said,
Oh, that would have been neat.
So we charged a princely $5, which is the cost of today's tour. And for that, people could come up here. They stopped up here at the top where we had a table, and they were to pick up the book. However, the book hadn't been printed yet. All we had were book jackets. And the books were due to come out, and that's because he was going to come in October, and then he called and said, wait, I've got a movie coming up. Can we bump that up to 10 days from now in August? So on a Tuesday at noon, on a hot August day, he arrived, and we had the book jackets, and he signed those with a felt pen. Unfortunately, they're rubbing off the shiny part now.
Oh, wow.
They bought the book, and we said, you know, we'll let you know when the books are in. They could come around here kind of 5 abreast. We walked up, and he was seated on a little dais in front of that fireplace. He signed. On one side was Ann Whittick, on the other side was a local gentleman, and they kind of kept the crowd moving because there were people who had performed with him here in the 50s who hadn't seen him, you know, in person and wanted to chat. There were distant relatives who lived out in Dublin, you know. There were just great fans, so they kept the crowd moving. And then most of the area here was blocked off. There were tables set in there, or not blocked, but it was just there were tables set up with all kinds of desserts on it. So people were asked to have a dessert if they'd like, and stand and watch for a while, and they could get their picture taken with Mr. Jones, but then they were to move on because fire code said, no, you can only have so many up there.
Oh, but there was a crowd here for him. Wow.
We didn't know what to expect. And, as I said, I was on the board then. I think we had about 25 volunteers just around the building to help get people to the right spots and whatever, and keep them out of certain areas. When he showed up, and I thought, oh, this is the first time I met anyone of his stature.
Mm-hmm.
He came up the top of the stairs, and I remember he stood there and he looked around the room and he said, oh my, how very nice, you know. And how wonderful they are, you people to come and help. And
I can imagine.
You're making us money, we're glad, you know.
I can picture him saying that with his voice and stuff. Wow.
But very genuinely nice. So he shows up, and the crowd, when I got here, we had to get here early, was in the stairwell down here, just outside Hardy Hall. They were stacked up at the stairs there, and down the corner toward First Street and around the block, or just around the corner, already at, you know.
Holy cow.
Now, he came in tow, or bringing in tow the, one of those news programs in the evening. They used to have, that was a celebrity kind of show, you know, they filming. And after the book signing, they wanted to go downtown to see where he would go to one of the, went to the soda fountain at one of the drugstores with some of the others who were young college kids here at the time. And he, you know, got credit. Ann Whittick was a married lady who lived here and a little older then, so she would sometimes bring sandwiches over for everybody for lunch. And but they wanted to go see where he used to hang out, and then go to the Dublin Irons area and see where his grandparents had lived and where they had raised him, even though the house is not there any longer.
I was worrying about that.
They kept looking at their watches because somebody said, oh my, Mr. Jones, how long will you be able to stay? And he said, well, I'll stay as long as you need me. Well, 4 hours later,
wow,
and 425 book jackets later, he was done. And there were some people who were here on their lunch hours, and they said, oh, I can't stay anymore. Nancy, would you take my book jacket and ask him to? So I had about 5, and I was one of the last ones to go through, and he was, you know, still signing. After that, he wanted to go to some of the old haunts in the building, such as up in this tower that you see on the outside of the building, which is nothing more than a storage place. But when Madge Skelly was running that program for the Summer Stock Manistee Drama Festival, she used that as her office space. And then at night, James Earl Jones and a friend who lived out of town too, Oak County, you know, it was about 20 miles to get home or so. Sometimes when it was a late night and they were going to have an early morning the next day, they had a couple cots up there and they would stay the night and just sleep there. And so he wanted to go up there, and I thought, I'm exhausted. And I was sitting, you know, it was hot. Now we have air conditioning. So he went up there with somebody, and then we used to have a spiral staircase that went above the house where props were stored. And on the walls inside that stairwell, it's a wooden one, people had signed the walls.
Oh, wow.
And he had signed the wall, you know, but he wanted to go and look at these signatures again, and I thought, yeah, have at it. That's great. You know, but he was excited about being here. Now, so he came, yes, at that time, didn't take off from here until, what, 5:30. And then at the centennial, he came back, 2003. So about 10 years later, he came back, and we really had started the restoration of the theater, the whole theater, with some money that came in from Ann Whittick's memorial funds. She had passed away a couple of years or so after this book signing. Oh, and by the way, people did come then to get their books, you know.
Right.
2 weeks later, we had boxes and boxes
wow.
of books to pass up. So he came, and he said for 2 nights he did readings, or one night, I don't remember now. But it was just before the anniversary show that was going to open. He came in August, and he performed poems, some of his favorites. Now he did, for instance, some Edgar Allan Poe, because he said, when I was a kid in high school, I got permission after basketball games sometimes to go with my friends under the bleachers, and we turn off our lights, and I said I'd sit there with my flashlight under my chin, and he said I'd read The Raven by Poe, or recite it, or, you know, something akin to that. He read some of the Kalevala, which is the Finnish national poem, because their school was in Brethren High School, but in Kalevala, Norman Dixon it's called now, so there are a lot of Finns living there. and he recited some of his English teacher's poetry. You might wonder, why would he, do that? Well, his English teacher was Professor Crouch, a man who had taught at a college out east. And he came back here to retire, and when he retired, the local school district, at the time it was called Dixon High School, he said they needed a high school English teacher. And he said, well, I'll come out of retirement, I'll do that for a few years. James Earl Jones, I don't know if you know this story, he was virtually mute from the time he moved up here at age 4 until he was in high school. And he was traumatized by moving to Michigan with his grandparents and aunts and uncles, some of whom weren't too much older than he. His mother was a seamstress who traveled here and there to try and make a living. His father, Robert Earl Jones, was an actor, and Grandpa and Grandma never really approved of him. He was a prize fighter and actor, and he and Mama had split when James was just a baby. I think he saw him once when James was an infant. So Grandpa and Grandma found that there was supposedly good land up here, so they bought some sight unseen, came up, and James was just kind of traumatized by that, and he said, I developed a stutter. So I did not speak. I just kind of yes and no, and that was it. And his classmates knew him as the tall, silent type. Professor Crouch had him in class one day, and he was copying down a poem that he had written, and Professor Crouch said, my, that's a pretty good poem. Where did you, whose poem is that? That's yours. Now, is that yours, or did you copy it from someone? And he said, I think if it's yours, you ought to stand up and recite it to us. And he said, well, I knew plagiarism was a bad business. He said, I didn't want to be a plagiarist. And so he said, I stood up, I recited that poem, and he said, to this day, I don't know if the instructor knew that the rhythm of the language would keep me from stuttering, but he said, my voice had been changing, and he said, well, did I know? And he said, my classmates just sat there agape, and after that, Professor Crouch got him involved in, was it forensics or debate? I think forensics. Took him around northern Michigan with a team, and of course sometimes they couldn't go someplace to eat because he was black. Up in Traverse City in that area, but he got him involved in that, and that's what won him a scholarship to U of M. So he credited Professor Crouch and his helping him develop a love of poetry and the written word. He developed the ability to speak again, and he said, he helped me rediscover my voice. Now, Ann Wittig, on that same episode of A&E biography, said, oh, he played his first Othello here. He said, oh, his voice, not that great. She said, oh my, I don't think I've ever told him I thought that. But she said, he was, he's still finding his way, and she said, but you could tell what was there. And indeed, he talked in his book about how he and his father, whom he met up with eventually in New York, he and his father would work as custodians at night so they could audition by day. And they spent a long time discussing Shakespeare roles, in particular Othello. That was one that, and he's played that numerous times, but and just discussing acting and the like. Now, I thought, gee, his father was an actor. I wonder if he ever did anything I might have seen. And then about 20 years ago, I was rewatching The Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. At the beginning of The Sting, Robert Redford's character is running small-time scams with an African-American fellow, And I thought, oh my, listen to that voice. And sure enough,
That was his dad.
Jones.
Wow.
And the two of them would run a scam together where the older man, Robert Earl, had money one time, and he pretended that he had injured his leg or something, and he said, you know, they scam people somehow. Somebody would stop and say, Richard, old man, you know, I gotta get this payment to so-and-so there, but they would end up scamming the other guy. Well, one time they scammed a really big fish. You know, that's what got him into all kinds of trouble then. And the character of Luther, Robert Earl Jones, was killed by this mobster. So I thought, oh, sure enough, when you listen to his voice at the beginning of that, maybe you can hear it on a bit of videotape on YouTube or something. You hear that, you know, that deep baritone, like James Earl Jones. So Professor Crouch helped James Earl Jones find his voice, helped him find a profession using his voice, ironically enough, and and so he came here and he talked about that a little bit. He read also, excuse me, oh no, that was the time when he came here for the centennial. He read a piece called Shakespeare in the Minority Key, which was about the minority characters in Shakespeare. And then it was a few years later, he came back one more time to benefit a project out at the Dixon School. The old school building was falling apart. People had a plan for making it a community center. It urgently needed a roof. And he said, classmates contacted him and said, sure, I'll come. That's when he did the poetry. And he answered questions. And somebody said, well, it's obvious you have fondness for Manistee County. When are you going to come back here? You know? And he said, well, I still love to work. And this was, 15 years ago or so. He said, I still love it. And the work is out east for the most part. So, because he's, since that time, he's been driving Miss Daisy on Broadway, and I saw him in New York do on Golden Pond.
I think he the new Lion King too.
The new Lion King, and he's been, of course, Darth Vader. So when I tell younger people about who this is, if I say Mufasa or Darth Vader, then they're apt to say, oh, But one of my, a film that I really am fond of, and I've only seen it once or twice, he did with, a very important actor too. It'll come to me. I can picture him. Anyway, he was in Lonesome Dove. Robert Duvall.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
A Family Thing? Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful film. And I especially love when they were wrestling each other on the ground and they said, we're getting too old for this kind of thing.
Yep, that was a really great movie.
It's a wonderful film about family and relationships.
This is my first time seeing the theater myself.
Mr. Jones came here then.
Look at this. That's the stage that James Earl Jones performed on. Oh, my Lord.
All right, thank you, ma'am. On canvas, it is a single piece of canvas on a wooden frame. And when you take the curtain up, it goes straight up to the loft, because the loft is 80 feet. This is a historic piece of theater because Burridge was a scenic painter from Chicago. He did the first set design pieces and backdrops for The Wizard of Oz when it was a stage show in 1902 in Chicago. that's the reason that our centennial show was The Wizard of Oz, because it had a connection then with Burridge. This was so grimy after almost 100 years and threadbare in some spots that the colors had been just muted. You could see what was in the foreground. You really couldn't see Athens in the background.
Wow.
Unless somebody took a flash picture of that for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the restorer got on scaffolding and such, and he spent, I don't remember how long, 2-3 weeks or more, just restoring this curtain, cleaning it for the most part.
Wow.
On the back, he put a special sizing to support it better, and he had to repaint here or there a little bit, but for the most part, this is all original. Now, he noticed that performers had been backstage before the curtain went up, and that if there was a little hole, they might stick a finger there and put their eye up to the hole, and their stage makeup would be smudged around the hole because they were looking out front to see who was in the audience before the show started. He said, cut that out. This is a valuable piece of art history. He said, you want to people. Like I said, they're not good unless you're here for a concert.
Mm-hmm. Now we get to go backstage.
We're just going to be right here. That's fine. Okay, just one person with me.
Just me. Wow.
Now, here's the old knob and tube wiring.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm glad they didn't take all of that out so we could see what once was here.
That is so neat.
And that's why you see all this conduit here, because of rewiring. And
Oh yeah. Although.
I'm going to show you, I can't take it out, but I'm going to show you how this would work. See, here's the canvas. We got this
Oh, okay.
apparatus. So what we would do, take the brick off. Well, it's counterweighted.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to go up. We just start pulling.
Pull it up.
Yep. And then down is this side. And it's been in place ever since it was painted. But see how this was sized.
Wow.
And then here, even here, there's a little patch.
Oh yeah.
Over here, we just
Look at
step
this.
over here a little bit. You see there's
Stitching.
one trapdoor. What's that?
Oh, there's a trap doors in here?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Say that again?
The Hamlet trap and the Faustus trap.
Now, why are they called that?
Hamlet trap because you would lower the Hamlet trap down for the gravedigger scene in Act 5.
Yeah.
And a Faustus trap is so that the devils can come into the mortal world from hell. So they
Oh.
would come up and
I didn't know that.
And it took two people, brawny folk on either side, down in the basement, had a counterweighted pulley system,
Mm-hmm.
and they were weighted according to who was going to come up or go down. So when it was Jack and the Beanstalk, a children's show, Jack stood here, and those two guys took this and pulled it, pushed it up, so the floor went down, and then they have to put it back into place and stick a 2x4 under it. And so directors would say, now if you're in this scene, after so-and-so goes down the track, beware of where you are or you'll end up in the basement. But this one also can be raised. This one here you see.
no, this one was down only.
No,
Oh.
well, once upon a time it was raised.
Now, it used to be that the elevators were in the back that were raised, and they took those out and they redid the floor.
But Nancy went up in this one. This is the elevator scene in Sweet Charity.
Well, but that's at its stop point. You can't go any higher than the floor level.
Okay.
So either one of these goes up or down, they just don't come up higher.
Okay.
But the elevators used to come up from the floor.
Yeah, and in fact, it was like 6 feet back there, and it ran the whole length of the floor, or the whole width. And so if we were doing a two-story set here, you could lift that thing up. It was pegged into position, heavy done by hand, and you could do a 2-story set. Now the problem with that was when this floor was put in, a newer floor, to bring that up to code would have been incredibly expensive.
Oh,
It's
yes.
not used that often, so didn't do that. Took some of that apparatus apart. But as you see, I was telling you, very little wing space. This theater was built as a backdrop theater, to use those rather than a lot of prop pieces and set pieces. Here were the original dressing rooms. You can see
Oh, wow.
the stairway went up. So there's one here, one there, and one up there.
Oh my gosh.
And then when they put in that air handling system, these just became little indentions, and so we've stored some tools in here. But yeah, it was
The original.
the original place for the performers to change.
Wow.
And I talked to you about having a spiral staircase to go up to the ballroom. There you see one that it's not the original, but you see that metal one that's going up there.
Yes.
So the door's at the top, and that will take you right into the ballroom.
Oh, wow.
Now look up, and you'll see that it's hard with these work lights, but you'll see at the top of the loft up there. You can access that by going up to the pin rail.
Okay.
You know what the pin rail's about?
No, I don't.
Well, over there you see that platform, and that's where they raise and lower curtains.
Oh,
raise and
okay.
lower backdrops, sometimes set pieces and they've got all these pipes that go from one side to the other above here on which to hang lights, curtains, backdrops. And so there's rigging up there, like on a sailing ship, to raise and lower counterweighted drops. Now, back here along this wall is a platform that was a painter's rail. They could actually put a canvas up, way up there, and paint the bottom of it, drop it down a little bit, paint some more, if they wanted to paint their own backdrops. Most people prefer today to hang one from one of the pipes here and then use a ladder and do it on stage because the light's better. But that's what they did. Sometimes people will rent a backdrop. You can rent them and come in a huge army-looking duffel. You have to spread it all out over the seats out there, and then like 6 people all take part of it, bring it on stage, tie it up to one of these bars that they bring down, and so then you can have the interior of a castle or something if you wish.
That's so neat.
But we've had a 2-story set for Noises Off, and we also had a 2-story set, Dandelion Wine. We were supposed to have like a 2-story house, just a portion of it. So it just went out a little bit from the stage here, and then the rest of the time it was back here tucked in. And you got to keep the actors elsewhere. So we'd have the actors stay in the green room because there was no way to have them standing back here, especially if you had a crowd of people, because there just wasn't room. But yeah, so it's kind of neat to utilize, in the Wizard of Oz, of course, that's where the Wicked Witch melted.
Oh, right here.
The track, she melted there. And it's amazing when you have a little bit of dry ice here.
Right.
Out there, you think, she really disappeared. A local woman would paint something to indicate what show they were doing next for the Manistee Drama Festival. And so she happened to do this portrait of James Earl Jones as Othello. And a few years ago, a family who inherited that house gave us this painting.
And they what was the story? They called him Todd Jones?
Well, he tried that on as a stage name.
Oh, okay.
That's what he decided to go by.
Todd
When he was
Jones.
here, yeah, Todd Jones. And so, and would always referred to him as Todd.
That's crazy.
Yeah.